With the release of the latest 3 Percy Jackson books, and just as the continuation of an ongoing series on my channel, I'd like to present you with the top 40 most powerful demigods that appear in the Percy Jackson series. It's a long video, so I included timestamps so you can skip around to your favorite demigods, but I recommend watching the full video so you can put the more powerful demigods into context by comparing them to the weaker ones. Anyways, here we go. Starting off are some lesser known demigods who we haven't really seen a lot of, for example Miranda Gardner. Miranda is a Greek demigod and a daughter of Demeter. She is the head counselor of the Demeter cabin when Katie Gardner is absent, and as a daughter of Demeter, the only powers we've seen from her would be control over plants, which aren't necessarily powerful in a fight. Next up is Pollux, who's actually a really cool character. He's the son of Dionysus and is the only member of the Dionysus cabin after his twin brother Castor died in the Battle of the Labyrinth. In The Lightning Thief, Pollux used his demigod powers to help make the camp's strawberry plants grow faster, and in theory, he should have some control over madness, as his father is Dionysus, but we haven't seen this in the books. So based on what we have seen of him, it doesn't seem like he's a very strong fighter, and his powers are about the same as Miranda's, so that's why he's so low on the list. Katie Gardner is the former head counselor of the Demeter cabin and is primarily shown in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. As a daughter of Demeter, she can of course control plants, but unlike other children of Demeter who are also very good fighters, like Meg, Katie doesn't seem to be very good at combat, so I put her in 38th place. Not much is shown of Chris's demigod powers, but he's a son of Hermes, so we can assume he has the common thievery and luck manipulation skills of children of Hermes. Chris is said to be a decent fighter. He helped fight against the Titan army in the last Olympian, but he failed to do things that other demigods higher up on the list have done. For example, Chris was sent into the labyrinth on a mission, but was driven insane by the Ghost King Minos. Luckily for him though, he was found by his girlfriend Clarice and was led back to camp where Dionysus healed him. Travis and Connor Stoll are twin brother counselors of the Hermes cabin. As children of Hermes, they display their demigod powers of thievery by causing chaos at camp and throwing epic pranks. They're really beloved characters, but they don't have anything that makes them super powerful. As a son of Hermes, Cecile can supernaturally steal things and has the same proficiency with locks that children of Hephaestus have with machines. Cecile displayed these powers when he was chosen to infiltrate Octavian's camp alongside Will Solus and Lou Ellen in the Blood of Olympus. For our first demigod from Magnus Chase, we have Mallory Keane. She's a daughter of Frigg and is a very talented fighter. Her go-to weapons are 2 indestructible serrated knives given to her by her mother, and as an Enheryar, she gets a big boost to her strength and speed, so she'd definitely be pretty useful in a fight. Jake Mason is the Greek demigod son of Hephaestus who was temporarily made the counselor of the Hephaestus cabin after Beckendorf's death. As counselor, he tried to lift the curse of Cabin 9 by capturing Festus, but failed and was put in a full body cast. But as we know, Leo Valdez, the most powerful child of Hephaestus, later successfully captured and repaired Festus. But anyways, Jake has the classic powers of children of Hephaestus, those being an expertise over machinery and metals. Kayla is the daughter of Apollo, and as such is a natural musician and medic. She used her powers over medicine to heal her father during the Tower of Nero, and in terms of fighting ability, Kayla is said to be a really great archer, and her skills are compared to those of the Hunters of Artemis. Clovis is the head counselor of the Hypnos cabin. In The Lost Hero, Clovis uses his powers to put Jason to sleep and tries to recover his lost memories. Clovis can also infiltrate dreams and speak to people in dreams. Pretty sure we also saw him in battle in the latest Percy Jackson book, The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, where he put some of the enemy monsters to sleep. Lou Ellen Blackstone is the Greek demigod daughter of Hecate and is the head counselor of the Hecate cabin at camp. In the Blood of Olympus, she helped spy on the Roman demigods along with Will Solus and Cecile Markowitz by shrouding them all in the mist. She can also cast magic spells, which she did in the Heroes of Olympus, casting protective spells over Camp Half-Blood to prepare for the upcoming war with the Roman demigods. And in The Lost Hero, she showed that she has telekinesis powers by levitating Miranda Gardner's nose. So overall, her powers are pretty strong and useful, and she has a good amount of experience, which is why she's starting out the top 30. TJ is the Norse demigod son of Tyr. He's an excellent marksman and fighter, and he uses the bone steel bayonet. Because TJ is an Enheryar in Hotel Valhalla, that also gives him a boost in strength and speed. Dakota is the demigod son of Bacchus, the Roman counterpart of Dionysus, and is a very skilled fighter, being the centurion of the 5th cohort and a senator of New Rome. Dakota would have the same powers as Pollux would, those being control over certain plants like grapevines and control over madness. Unfortunately, Dakota died in the Trials of Apollo during the Battle of San Francisco Bay, but his fighting ability alone is enough to rank him in the top 30. Blitz is the son of Freya and the dwarf Beely, giving him similar powers over the earth as Hazel has. He can sense and shape rocks and is an excellent crafter. Blitz is also really passionate about fashion, and we've seen him combine his passion with his crafting skills to make really cool and powerful armor. Blitz does have a couple weaknesses though, mainly that he's really bad under pressure and that, as a dwarf, he can't go into the sunlight or else he'll be petrified. Drew is the former head counselor of the Aphrodite cabin, known for ruling with fear and using her charm speak to control her siblings. Speaking of charm speak, she is one of only 4 known demigods who have this super rare power, and it's pretty much the only thing that makes her powerful. She's also known for being really mean and talking badly about Selena Beauregard, a hero from the Battle of Manhattan. So I'm sure we're all in agreement that Piper did us a big favor when she challenged and beat Drew for the position of head counselor. Speaking of Selena, she's another child of Aphrodite and also has one of the rarest abilities, which is charm speak. Her charm speak was never explicitly mentioned in the books, it was more implied by the way she controlled Festus with her voice in one of the side books, and by Percy describing her voice as very powerful and commanding. Selena was a spy for Kronos, but ultimately fought alongside Camp Half-Blood before her death during the Battle of Manhattan. Charles Beckendorf is one of the more powerful children of Hephaestus. Where other people like Jake Mason failed, Charles was the only person at the time who was able to repair and control Festus. He was the head counselor of the Hephaestus cabin and was sent on a mission with Percy to infiltrate Luke's ship, the Princess Andromeda. Unfortunately, Charles ended up sacrificing himself so that Percy could escape, and his death was said to be the start of the curse on Cabin 9, that people like Jake Mason tried and failed to lift. Beckendorf's death was also the catalyst for his girlfriend Selena to abandon Kronos' side and fight for Camp Half-Blood. Halcyon was a demigod son of Apollo, whose only appearance in Percy Jackson was in a side book called the Demigod Diaries. Early in his life, he used his prophecy powers from Apollo to see into the future and save a girl's life, earning him the wrath of the gods, who imprisoned Halcyon in his childhood home, where he was used to lure other demigods, including a young Luke Castellan and Thalia Grace. The major powers Halcyon displayed is his ability to look into the future, and in the Demigod Diaries, he predicted that Thalia would reunite one day with her brother Jason, and that Luke would eventually betray his friends and Camp and join Kronos' side. While Halcyon's powers aren't necessarily strong in a fight, knowing the future of such big events is powerful in other ways, which is why he comes in at around the middle of the list. Clarice is an overall well-rounded demigod. She's a very good fighter, known for being one of the strongest at camp, and being a daughter of Ares, she gets access to the Blessing of Ares, which lets her go crazy when she needs to. She used the blessing to pretty much single-handedly slay the Drakon after Selena's death in The Last Olympian, and her weapon, a spear imbued with electricity, is pretty cool and gives her an extra edge in battle. Most of Ethan Nakamura's power comes from his sword fighting ability. He was a specialist at defense, being able to hold back Percy, who's one of the best sword fighters ever, but Ethan wasn't very good at offense. Ethan is a son of Nemesis, and his demigod powers include luck being on his side, which he used during his fight against Percy. Ethan's cunning nature is also perfectly symbolized by his weapon choice, which is a poison dagger, so all in all, he's a pretty scary person to be fighting against. Samira is another of the Norse demigods on the list, and is a Valkyrie in addition to being a demigod. Her godly parent is Loki, which gives her the ability to shapeshift, but because of her hatred for her father, she barely ever uses her demigod powers, so I can't really include them when determining where she ranks on the list. As a Valkyrie though, she can fly, like Jason Grace, and she's a pretty decent fighter, her go-to weapon being a battle axe. And being a Valkyrie gives her a similar strength, speed, and endurance boost to being an Einherjar. A little above the middle of the list, we have the triple demigod Josephine, and let me explain what that means. Her actual godly parent is Hecate, so she can control the mist, but she's also an expert mechanic. I won't go so far as to say she's as good as a child of Hephaestus, but she's built some pretty powerful and complex weapon defense systems to guard the way station. And she's a former hunter of Artemis, so while she doesn't have the immortality that hunters have anymore, she probably still has some of her old fighting skills. So yeah, triple demigod, Hecate, Hephaestus, and Artemis. Pretty strong. Hilla is the Roman daughter of Bellona, the goddess of war, and is by far the most talented fighter so far on the list. She's the queen of the Amazons, who are comparable in power and ability to the Hunters of Artemis. And in order to become the queen of the Amazons, she had to beat Otrira, the former queen and daughter of Ares. And to make Hilla an even better fighter, her demigod powers from Bellona give her natural expertise and knowledge over every weapon. Reyna is another daughter of Bellona. She's actually just Hilla's sister, giving her exceptional fighting skills and the ability to boost her comrades' energy and morale while on the battlefield. She's the former praetor of the 12th Legion, and she's now currently part of the Hunters of Artemis. Because her demigod powers don't really help her out in battle, her fighting ability alone is the reason why she's almost in the top 15. She's one of the best fighters among all demigods, and she used her combat abilities alone, as well as a little help from her mother, to single-handedly defeat the giant Orion. Will is one of the demigods on this list that actually got a really big boost in power because of some of the new books, mainly the Son of the Star. Before the Son of the Star, Will was known for his healing ability, being a son of Apollo. He had other support powers, such as being able to make his body glow to provide light, but in the Son of the Star, he actually got some really strong offensive powers as well. Will was able to shoot light rays out of his skin for the first time, which disintegrated the demon Epiales, and he actually managed to damage the primordial goddess Nyx with this ability too. Will also has auditory powers, being a child of Apollo. For example, he was able to use these powers to channel his energy into Nico's sword just by humming, and can also create really loud whistles to disorient his enemies. One of Will's new powers from the Son of the Star was that he can actually control illnesses, as his father is the god of plagues, and he managed to make Nyx sick. So overall, Will used to be mainly a support character in battle, but now he has both support and some of the most powerful offensive abilities we've seen. Luke Castellan is a really awesome character, for sure the most powerful child of Hermes on the list, and definitely one of the most talented swordsmen here. Like I mentioned, Luke's godly parent is Hermes, and he's used his thievery skills to steal some high-end items, like Zeus's Master Bolt and Hades' Helm of Darkness. Luke was also Percy's sword-fighting mentor, which goes to show how good Luke really was, as Percy is known for being one of the best sword fighters. His sword is also really cool, being half celestial bronze and half steel, so it can hurt both monsters and mortals alike. Luke also has shown off his physical strength in many ways, like holding up the weight of the sky and surviving the river Styx. Luke's accomplishments are on par with demigods at the top of the list, as are his fighting skills and experience, since he's been fighting monsters since he was 9 years old when he ran away from home. The only thing that holds him back are his demigod powers, which are not very useful in fights. Coming up next is Piper McLean, one of the 7 and the most powerful child of Aphrodite. Experience and being good at fighting come along with being one of the 7, but the main reason Piper is in the top 15 is because of her Charm Speak, which is the most powerful of the 4 demigods known to have Charm Speak. Piper improved this ability throughout the entire Heroes of Olympus series, so that by the end she was able to influence the primordial Gaia and put her to sleep. Other than that, Piper's dagger Catoptris can occasionally show her glimpses of the future, but her Charm Speak accounts for like 90% of Piper's power. Dahlia Grace is a daughter of one of the big 3, Zeus, and has a bunch of different stuff that make her powerful. The most obvious would be her demigod powers from Zeus, which let her summon and control lightning to strike down her enemies. Dahlia is also the lieutenant of the Hunters of Artemis, which means she's an exceptional fighter and has a ton of experience in combat situations. She was even good enough at fighting to be one of the only people besides Percy who could face Luke in combat, as she did in the Titan's Curse. She also has a really strong shield imbued with the imprint of Medusa's head that casts fear upon her enemies in battle. And something a lot of people might have forgotten was that Chiron was said to have taught Dahlia how to control the mist, which other demigods like Hazel have proven to be a really strong ability. Alex is a Norse demigod and another child of Loki. They have a mixture of a lot of the most powerful abilities demigods can have, which is why they nearly cracked the top 10. For starters, Alex can shapeshift, similar to their half-sibling Samira and like Frank. On top of that, Alex also is able to Charm Speak, a power they get from Loki. Alex is also able to cast magic spells, which they sometimes use to bring their pottery creations to life. So I guess that's kind of similar to Nico D'Angelo's ability to summon the dead. And lastly, Alex is a pretty solid fighter, and they're in Heriar, so they get the boost in strength and speed. I want to use the 10th spot to give an honorable mention to Carter and Sadie Kane, mainly because they aren't actually demigods and don't belong on a most powerful demigods list, but they're too powerful to leave out completely, so I'm just going to give them an honorable mention. For context though, if they were demigods, they would probably be in the top 3, so anyways, Carter and Sadie are Egyptian demigods who slowly built up new abilities and skills throughout the Kane Chronicles, and eventually ended up just being completely overpowered. Carter became the chief lector of the House of Life by the end, and Sadie was able to cast the most powerful hieroglyph in existence. And they both just have too many powers and accomplishments to list out here. A few of them include shapeshifting, summoning portals, summoning hieroglyphs, using magic for invisibility and telekinesis, and so much more. And they both follow different paths of Egyptian gods, which give them even more powers. Carter follows the path of Horus and is able to summon the Fists of Horus and a huge 20-foot tall combat avatar. And Sadie follows the path of Isis, which gives her access to super powerful magic spells. So yeah, these two were just too crazy to leave out, but now that I've mentioned them, let's get back to the demigods. Magnus is the final and most powerful Norse demigod to make the list, and he's the main character of the Magnus Chase series, obviously. He is the son of Frey, so he has similar healing abilities to Children of Apollo. He can also use the Piece of Frey, which disarms everyone on the battlefield. Seeing as how this is a video about how good demigods are at fighting, his demigod powers don't seem very strong. The reason Magnus is in the top 10 is because of his weapon Jack, or the Sword of Summer, which is by far the strongest weapon in all the Percy Jackson series. Jack can cut through nearly anything, including magic barriers, repair himself, is sentient by the way, can fly, and can open portals throughout the 9 worlds. Next up, we got the cousin of Magnus Chase, Annabeth Chase, who is also one of the most skilled fighters on the list, especially when we combine her experience with her demigod powers. Annabeth has been fighting monsters ever since she ran away from home when she was 7, and the intelligence she gets from her mother Athena make her capable in almost any situation. Annabeth also has one of the most powerful magic items we've seen in the series, which is her Yankees cap, which lets her turn invisible. I'll also note that Annabeth is one of the 7 and has been a part of so many different prophecies, which have allowed her to fight a lot of powerful monsters, titans, and primordials. Coming up next is Bad Boy Leo, who is not only a fan favorite character, but also the strongest child of Hephaestus and the only child of Hephaestus to have the fire manipulation ability. On top of that, Leo is a mechanical genius. He was able to repair and control Festus and lift the curse on Cabin 9 after Beckendorf's death. He built Iargo 2, and he's used his abilities to find Calypso's island again and rescue her. He's fought goddesses like Chion and primordials like Gaia, is of course one of the 7, and has Festus on his side, who will and does help him fight in battle. Leo also has his magic tool belt, which can magically summon and store workshop items. In 6th place, we have Frank, member of the 7, son of Mars and descendant of Poseidon. First and foremost, Frank is a really big guy. He's like 6'5" and really strong, so he'd definitely be a problem in a fight. On top of his size, he's also a really good fighter, and he's pretty much as good with a bow and arrow as Children of Apollo and Hunters of Artemis. Frank's only demigod power from Mars is that he occasionally gets the blessing of Mars, similar to Clarice, but his powers from his relation to Poseidon allows him to shapeshift like some of the other demigods we've already seen. Frank used to have a major weakness in the piece of firewood his life force was attached to, but he actually got rid of this weakness in the Trials of Apollo, when he single-handedly destroyed Commodus and Caligula in battle. And I'll keep bringing up this moment as many times as I need to, because it's just too cool. It's just the way he reminded Caligula that he killed Jason before igniting his firewood and encasing them both in flames. It was just incredible. Hazel starts off our top 5, and for good reason. She's a daughter of Pluto and can manipulate rocks and metals, and we've seen her have some of the same powers her brother Nico has, like being able to shadow travel and sense death. Her demigod powers aren't super powerful by themselves, but Hazel is also probably the 2nd best at manipulating the mist, only behind the demigod in 3rd place. Hazel is currently Praetor of the 12th Legion alongside Frank, and is of course a very skilled fighter and has a lot of experience being one of the 7. Jason Grace, aka the One-Man Army, is considered the most powerful demigod for a lot of people, and for good reason. His fighting ability is at the highest level, his powers from Jupiter are incredibly strong in battle, he has pretty much spent his entire life training and fighting, so he has a lot of experience. He's one of the 7, a former Praetor of the 12th Legion, fought the Titan Krios when he was 14 years old, and a lot more. To go into more detail about his powers, he can summon lightning really efficiently, he can control the wind, which he uses to allow him to fly, and he can summon certain natural disasters like thunderstorms. Jason's weapon is also pretty cool, being able to transform into a coin and turn into either a sword or a spear, depending on if it lands on heads or tails. Overall, he checks off all the boxes you need to be one of the strongest demigods. He's got the fighting skill, the demigod powers, the experience, and the weapons. Starting off the top 3, we have Alabaster Torrington, and a lot of you might be thinking, who even is that? I made an entire video about him, but as a quick recap, Alabaster only shows up in the Demigod Diaries, is the most powerful child of Hecate, and because of that, commanded all the other children of Hecate to fight alongside Kronos in the Titan War. Alabaster's siblings were all killed during the war, and after Kronos was defeated, Alabaster was exiled from Camp Half-Blood. As a child of Hecate, he of course has complete control over the mist, and he can use magic for a lot of other things as well. He has an ability called Mist Form, where he can store and summon objects and even people in cards, and he just has access to a book filled with the most powerful incantations and spells you could possibly cast. He's also got super strength from what we've seen in the Demigod Diaries, and he has an ally named Claymore, who was considered one of the brightest geniuses of his time, who looks over Alabaster now as a Mist Form and helps him out. Like some of the members of the Seven, for example Leo, it was said that even Gaia fears Alabaster and continuously sends monsters to hunt him down. From what I know, Alabaster is still alive, and it's important to know that he hates Percy Jackson for his role in defeating Kronos. So maybe in the future we can see those two fight each other. But if you want to learn more about him, I highly recommend reading his story in the Demigod Diaries. Nico is another of the demigods that got a power up from the new book releases. Before the Sun and the Star though, Nico was considered the second most powerful demigod, as the only child of Hades in the series. Nico can of course summon undead warriors to fight for him in battle, turn people into ghosts just by touching them, shadow travel, cause earthquakes, and some more minor abilities he gets from Hades, like his death trance. Nico is the Ghost King, and has achieved some amazing things like surviving Tartarus and fighting Cupid. His weapon is also really awesome. It's Stygian iron and consumes the essence of the monsters he kills, so they never end up regenerating again in Tartarus. A new ability we saw from Nico in the Sun and the Star was his ability to control dreams, especially nightmares, which we've seen him use to put mortals to sleep. And we also saw him in battle against the primordial Nyx alongside Will in the new book. Another new development from the Sun and the Star is that Nico now has a small army of cacodemons that's loyal to him, so those are even more soldiers for him to use in battle. Of course, in first place is Percy Jackson, and I find it so funny that Percy has fought nearly every monster, titan, Olympian, and primordial that you can think of. In the new books, they literally find random monsters on the street that know and hate Percy Jackson. Percy has also fought a lot of the people on this list. He's fought Carter Kane, Thalia, Jason, Ethan, Luke, Clarice, and probably some others that I'm forgetting. Percy is the son of Poseidon, and his demigod powers include controlling liquids, using water to heal himself, being able to speak to certain animals, becoming stronger while in contact with water, and a bunch of other stuff. Percy has done some incredible things as well, like survive Tartarus, hold up the sky, and survive a dip in the river Styx. Like I mentioned before, he's also fought a lot of big names like Ares, Kronos, Gaia, Nyx, Atlas, Hyperion, and the new books even got him fighting random minor gods. Like I mentioned earlier, Percy is one of the best sword fighters on this list, and he's got over 20 books worth of experience fighting monsters. So overall, Percy's powers are top of the list. His fighting skills are on par with the best, and he's got a ton of experience fighting the most powerful opponents.